we are thrilled to present to you the 2010, this is the third or fourth version, but the 2010 version of the Advertising Week Leadership Conversation. So thanks so much, and we hope to see you throughout the week.
Afternoon, everybody. Hello, hello, echo. There we go, okay. Thank you for your patience and understanding. We know we've been running late, but we're going to make up for that by canceling the Foursquare guy and just having us do two panels at the same time. No, not really, just kidding. Thank you all for coming. We're hoping to offer you a lively and provocative look at some of the big picture issues that are on the minds of the leaders of the advertising, marketing, and media worlds. And we have this is I think the fourth one of these panels that we've done for Advertising Week. And every year we have a different set of leaders. And that's because nobody wants to come back after they do it. No, it's because we like to rotate the props. It's the Agriculture Secretary has asked us to do that. So we have a very good, grasp, I think, on some of the issues that are challenging and facing the advertising industry. And we actually are going to, I know you can all groan at once, but we are actually going to shorten this session up a little bit to help out with logistically with the backlog going on, because somebody came very, very late to their session this morning, and it just took everything off track, and that's why we've been running late all day. So we're going to throw ourselves under the bus here and shorten our event a bit. So those of you who are here for the Foursquare guy, he'll be on only a little bit late instead of frightfully, horribly late, because we don't want to cut into the time where people are going to go to the parties. Yes, thank you. All right, okay, yes, you're right. Okay, you have the biographies. I will just say hello to our esteemed panelists from left to right. Sitting directly next to me is Arlene Manos, who's president for sales at Rainbow Media Holdings. And despite the name, Rainbow Media does not own Logo. However, they do own a very large batch of very interesting and watched cable channels, and they are part of the giant Cablevision Systems group. And the channel that they might be best known for is a little channel called AMC that runs this obscure program called Mad Men every Sunday night at 10 o'clock. Sitting next to Arlene is Greg Coleman, who's president for sales at the Huffington Post, which dastardly stole away one of our top business news reporters the other day, named Peter Goodman. But we're not going to talk about that.
No, after you said no.
We're bitter about it. We're not going to bring it up ever again. He's dead to us. Dead. Next to Greg is Jackie Kelly, who's president for North America of the Universal McCann Media Agency, which is part of the Interpublic group of companies. And thank you for being here. Next to Jackie is, I know I'm going to mispronounce this no matter how many times I try. Pio Shankar. Shankar. Good try. Okay. Senior Vice President for Integrated Marketing at Coca-Cola. Oh, no, Coca-Cola. Sorry. Got that one wrong, too. And finally, next to Pio is Patrick McKenna, who's Manager for Marketing Communications at BMW. And here is our leadership panel, and we are going to start off by asking the esteemed leaders up here on stage with me, what is it that is keeping them awake these days at night? At night these days? What is it that you're worrying about the most? Things are a little better than they were when we were doing this Advertising Week 2 years ago, September of 2008, when almost in real time, we were watching the financial system come close to collapse, and things seemed to be better than they were September of 2009, when we were sort of crawling out of the hole, and allegedly the recession had ended just before. And here we are a year later. Where are we, and what is it that you folks are still worried about? And we'll start at that end with Patrick.
Okay. As a luxury marketer, you can't help but look at the economy and look at housing, unemployment, just things like that, and how it's going to relate to the luxury car business. So we're in a good trajectory. We're up 8% year over year. We've got great aspirations for the next few years, but with the economy, you just never know. We see that people are being more demanding when they're coming to the market. They're doing more homework. We're seeing that there's more cross shopping. So
what do you mean by cross shopping?
Just in terms of their, my favorite customer is a customer that comes to the market and only looks at BMW and buys a BMW. That's my favorite customer. I wish all the customers like that. But we definitely see an uptick in cross shopping. We're still doing a great job in terms of converting them. But they're just out there looking. I think consumers are making more, doing more homework to make informed decisions. So.
And that's what worries you. If only they would just blindly buy my product.
I think that's in the near term. In the longer term, I just want to make sure that the economy stays on track.
Okay.
Sell more cars.
Okay. Anyone else want to take a crack at this one? Okay, thank you, Arlene.
I could, I guess. I sleep very well, but I do wake up in the morning with some thoughts sometimes. And our business is good, the advertising business. I'm primarily responsible for AMC and We, and I will say advertising has been very good for us, in no small part, I think, on AMC, due to some different things we're doing with the movies as well as the originals. But there's a theory that cable is not often recorded, which is true. A lot of the shows are not. They repeat often enough. But we do get concerned about measurements, particularly for the originals across various platforms and across various times of the week with C3 and VOD and all of that. So we're watching that pretty carefully, and I would say that that's one of the things that we keep thinking about.
And that's particularly true because for AMC, for instance, you are scheduling more original series in addition to Mad Men and Breaking Bad.
We are. We started with Broken Trails 4 years ago, I guess, moving on to Mad Men, Breaking Bad, Rubicon, and a couple of others coming up. Yeah, it's a big initiative for us, and we as well. Many more originals in the bridal area and some other things, but many more originals.
Okay, Pio, a product like yours, like Coca-Cola, not a lot of out-of-pocket, so the economy may not hurt as much as it might a BMW, but on the other hand, you have worry lines on your face, so. The audience can't see them. They're only visible from close up.
Botox, which should taken care of that. No, I don't worry. The agencies worry for me. But no, I think the biggest thing that concerns us right now is that marketing has become increasingly non-linear, which is a great opportunity. And I think the thing that I see, and I hold both the client side as well as the agency side accountable for this, is I don't know that any of us are as ready as we'd like to be for what is already upon us. And I think that it's beyond just social media or digital media. I think it's a much more pervasive thing. We look from Coke, we look at the ultimate moment of truth being retail, and I actually think that that's the long forgotten sort of endpoint that no one is really focusing on. And I think that as we look at this non-linear marketing model that is now upon us, how do we really best gear up for it, and how do our agency partners really begin to understand that and bring that to us as a whole?
It's too bad you can't open up your own stores like some of the clothing lines are starting to do now, rather than go through the troubled department store channel. They're just opening up their own retail outlets.
So, Stuart, one of the things I would add to that is with social marketing really becoming on the main stage right now, the organization structures at the agencies, at the clients, at the publishers really need a lot of work to be able to get done what they need. So as we're watching a convergence of public relations, brand marketing, promotional marketing coming together, it poses challenges that will take a while for just the simple structure of the organization. So if you thought about a chief marketing officer in the past, if that chief marketing officer doesn't have a good hold on public relations as well, it's a very bifurcated message that can get out into the marketplace.
And this is and public relations in and of itself is something very different than it did when this
Right.
guy probably got his job or went to business school or married the boss's daughter or whatever he did to become CMO.
It's a much different job right now.
It's very important, structure. I mean, structure impacts strategy, it just does, and they're interdependent, I think, so it's a big issue.
The only thing I would add, I agree with Pia that agencies do stay awake at what bothers and keeps their clients up. And I would say that as an industry, we should be concerned about talent. This came up this morning on the panel briefly. But, I would say the creative agencies are probably 80% talent and 20% infrastructure. On the media agency side, we're, I'd say 50% talent and 50% infrastructure when we think about the amount of data and systems that have to be at our disposal to deploy on behalf of our clients. So if you look at talent being so critical, the teams we put on the field every day is really what makes us different. And so how do we continue to attract the best talent as an industry and certainly as an individual agency, and obviously they should have diversity.
The industry made a big move not that long ago when the creative agencies and the media agencies were separated much more concretely, and that really meant there was a sharp divergence. In retrospect, given how much everything needs to be looked at holistically, was that a mistake? Is there going to be some movement back toward re-smushing these things together so that you get much more of an approach where people look at it from a bigger picture?
My answer to that is it depends on the client. We have many clients who require an integrated solution, and in those senses, whether it's integrated with McCann or integrated with other agencies, work very closely in order to create that level of partnership. Others prefer to knit together and actually do a lot of the management of that on the client side. So I think I'm a proponent that we need to have both. We need to be best in class at both because clients are all different.
I'd like to that by saying that Coke certainly we started on this about 5 years ago very intentionally. We're definitely going to be a look-up model. I don't think, our realization is that there's no one agency that can do it all for us, so we really try and be best in class. And I think that there's a huge realization increasingly at Coke, and it has been for the last 4 years or so, and increasingly over the next 3, to really create an infrastructure in-house where the brand expertise lies in-house. That doesn't mean we're creating an ad agency or any model there.
But you're creating something inside just to manage all the managing that you have to do.
We're really creating we're really sort of creating a center of expertise in-house that knows how to create and manage brands and their expressions. And then we work very closely with the ad agencies and all our partners to make sure that what gets articulated out there is both, on strategy for us, but then obviously, depending on the talent of the agency, as creative and as inventive as it needs to be for the channel that they're going out on. We manage the expression across all that. So exactly your point, but much, much more a la carte and increasingly so from our side.
But how do you do that without just getting lost in all these processes where people wind up talking to each other and then you're never talking outside your own corridors?
It's really a hub and spoke model for us at Coke. So we really have
That's worked out really well for the airline industry, hasn't it?
I think you can also create an expectation on your agencies that if you're going to work on as part of a team on this, here's the level of accountability and collaboration that's expected, and people step up to that.
Yeah, that has worked really well, and that's exactly it. Every agency knows that they have to, we usually have the general agency be the lead because they really help create the sort of true brand expression, and then they really work with all the other agencies to make sure that work gets articulated in the manner that we want, but we really do control it from our side.
Is that generally, do you think that that's generally the practice? Because it's interesting from our side, from the seller side. We'd almost have to get to the client if we had a particular idea, because sometimes it's hard to get it across all those agencies. Sometimes we just don't move it though.
Yeah.
Stuart, let me ask, can I follow up with Jack?
Oh, no, I'm supposed to ask the questions. You're not allowed to ask
So, Jack,
You were simply
you talked about talent, right? It's one of the big issues for all of us. you're one of the few people that's ever, I guess, left the dark side. Publishers, maybe you went to the dark side, I don't know what's the dark side. But you came from the publisher side, got a gigantic job on the agency side, and are doing a wonderful job of it now. It's great to see.
My former boss.
But in terms, but you did. And, but are you looking now at the model of talent, of reaching across disciplines? Are you looking to the publishing world? Are you looking at just other ad agencies? Are you looking to the client? Where are you looking?
Great question. So we're looking everywhere. The recent hires we made, some come from media.
Anybody need a job out there?
Yeah.
She's taking
Yeah,
resumes
job
after we're gonna shorten this another 5 minutes, so we can have a mini job fair on stage.
Right.
And get some hiring done here.
But what I find is that we've hired media owners, we've hired some from consulting backgrounds, we've hired some from creative agencies who have exceptional account management in their background. But what's consistent is that they're all, I would say they all have a sense of curiosity, which is very important to us. They're always asking and pushing for more. They have heightened collaboration, kind of goes to Pia's point. You can't really work in this business anymore unless you're highly collaborative. And that goes with creative agencies, obviously with their clients and the multiple brands they manage, and also with the media owners, because in many cases, we see the media owners as our extension of creativity. So if we're giving them the right level of transparency and time frame, we know we're going to get better thinking. And so we've invested in talent that comes from the media owner side, for the most part, simply to work within the agency as a separate standalone group to try to get the best thinking out of media owners.
And that would be companies like, say, Meredith and Time Warner that have the corporate departments
but
with their.
also, Facebook and Foursquare, all of them. I mean, we spend a lot of time understanding what's critical about the audience that we're trying to reach on behalf of a brand, understanding their media habits, and we go after the media owners who can connect with those audiences best, and ask them to really create custom stuff for these clients, because there's no reason for us to tell you what your audience values most. You know that. You can help us connect to that. So.
But in that process, sometimes the media agency is getting cut out of that process, because the client will go right to the media company, or the media company will go right to the client, and then the agencies are disintermediated out of the process. No.
So I was a salesperson who went to most clients most of my career, so I get that. But I think that happens when media agencies aren't providing the right level of access and transparency in order to allow media owners to do their best thinking. So if we alter our structure and we are more engaging and more available to the media owners, they don't care where they go. They just want to do the best work. Has been my experience.
No, I do agree with that. It would be, we would prefer to work with the agency. We definitely would. I mean, occasionally, yes, the client is the direct, but we prefer to work with the agency.
And that's different on the publisher side, where it's more of a mix of client and agency.
Can you talk a little, Patrick, about what's going on at BMW in this regard?
Yeah, definitely. I've lived through unbundled, bundled, and bundled. So I've come full circle. But I think it does make it a little easier when you're creative and media at the same place. But if you really boil down this holistic approach, which is, I think, such a buzzword, but it truly, for us, it's experiential marketing. It's CRM, which I think there are a lot of companies that don't fully integrate, which is pretty labor intensive. When you bring all of that together in public relations, you're talking about sometimes 5 or 6 different partners. So what we really started advocating 5 years ago was empowerment, that they are meant to meet amongst themselves. When I hear that there are agencies meeting, flying into different cities to meet without the clients, nothing makes me happier, because that means they are integrating behind the scenes. We're giving them all the same creative brief to some extent, the same strategy, but it's incumbent upon them to work together. And I think it was tough to get started, and that was with all parties being willing to work with each other, so everyone was agreeable, but it's just very labor intensive. But because we've really put it into the culture 5 years later, it's second in nature.
And does every car launch and introduction become a jump ball where everybody is
yeah, so right now, to give you an example, everyone has been meeting. The summer is anything but quiet. It's getting ready for 2011. Each launch is definitely a cross-collaborative process. And by the time it comes to us, it has been vetted by the agency partners. So they themselves have taken out the bad ideas. They themselves have brought it down to only the best thinking. So we definitely practice it day in and day out, but it really relies on the agencies working together.
Stuart, you talked about jump ball. What we're seeing now, we're contacted regularly at the Huffington Post by public relations firms that are now trying to cross that line to get into the branded world because it's really blurrier than ever. And it's the first time, I would say this last year, that I have seen such a blurring of a line where people are unabashedly starting to talk about representing their client. And if it has a little bit of social, then they're going after it. And whoever at the client side, Patrick, maybe you can talk about this, plays the referee around that. I'm finding the fact that we need more referees today, but I love the fact that there's so much interest in social and working in more of an authentic, open marketplace.
And referee is a good term because I think because you have different agencies with different core strengths, sometimes the client is put in a position where they're refereeing between two parties. So I'll cover that's my first definition of being a referee as a client. And I think that we're very fortunate that we don't have that type of approach, and because we just don't have time for it. We're pretty lean. But I think the referee scenario that you just outlined, I think, is more of how do you make sure a great idea lives on? How do you make sure a great idea really goes that extra mile? And I think that's where it really is, it's I think for lack of a better term, it's like a tribunal approach where it's like, because everyone is together, they're kind of voting with themselves. So for example, we did a pretty extensive program with Vanity Fair where we had art cars in museums, we had Campaign Hollywood with the Oscars, we had a multi-dimensional program, and everyone who was in that agency team had a hand in doing their part for it and for validating, yes, this is a great program. So I do think it's, when it works perfectly, that team is doing the referee work themselves. And rarely am I in a situation where I have to kind of force an issue. So
What do you all feel about the pace of change? I mean, Foursquare was, a year ago we did Advertising Week. I don't know, was there a Foursquare? Did anybody know about it? If there was one, was anybody becoming mayor of Times Center a year ago? I don't think so. Facebook, Twitter, everything else, it's just every 15 minutes it seems something is coming along that not only is it new and different, but so many of these things are all seeming to be adopted to some degree simultaneously, where it's all happening at once. And I'm wondering again, how do you all cope with this and deal with this and separate the wheat from the chaff without throwing away a whole bunch of tasty wheat?
I like your farm analogy.
As
a former rancher,
Farmville, maybe, I don't know, yeah. So, that's another one, Farmville.
My thought on that is that we're fortunate that we have several resources whose job it is to really look at what is considered emerging and determine what role it might play. And I think that for agencies, we have to be thinking further ahead, looking at those companies and investing resources and time in the Silicon Valley to see what's next. But we also have to be that gauge to determine where we choose to focus, because otherwise it can become a lot of noise. And so we do.
And are you able to look at that or preview that or predict that, or it seems sometimes we're all being just dragged along by the consumer, and maybe that's a good thing,
yeah,
where suddenly these things are seemingly coming out of nowhere, and suddenly tens of millions of people are all adopting them.
Well, so the intent we have is to make sure we're not surprised by that. So these resources who are keeping up with that and telling us sort of where the smoke is in the distance. Second is everything should begin with the audience insight and what the objective is. So one size is never going to fit all. So you don't just begin to plug these things in because people are using them or because it's on the front page of your newspaper every day. It's a matter of making sure it fits for the client, and then always making sure there's information on the back end to make sure it works. So, but I think to answer your question, for us, it's a matter of being ahead and having resources who are thinking about that.
And we're seeing the speed right now and the new things are all around social media, and they're all kind of lumped together, and they're all blurry, and they can get misaligned. So I think this fall, I've been invited to 75 social marketing summits of some kind, and really, and it's a little hard to understand. But what we have seen at my company is that you can build some great partnerships with these. So again, from the publisher side, if you can harness a Facebook or a LinkedIn or a Twitter to enhance your brand, and then as we have very seriously at the Huffington Post, then go to the marketing community and say, this is what we've done for us, let's work with you on your brand to see if we can start rolling that out. But if you look at it as this kind of blob that's out there, it's really difficult for a lot of people to make heads or tails. And partnerships is what we've seen is really the best way to do it.
I would say for us, we are primarily a cable television network, but in many ways our consumers have made Facebook a part of our lives because of some of the things that have happened on our own website with the avatars, the Mad Men, and them putting them on Facebook. So we're learning a lot about it, I would say.
And all the individual Mad Men characters now have Twitter feeds.
Yes, that's right.
Including the mouse.
That's right.
The mouse from The Office now has his own Twitter feed.
That's right.
Pio, we're gonna finish up with you, and then we're gonna have time for a couple of questions from the audience.
Well, I think it's just reflecting what everyone's saying. It is definitely overwhelming, and I think for us it's a sort of a mix of three things. One is we absolutely rely on our media and our creative agencies to really help us figure out what's emerging and what's really great. I think the second thing really is the brand idea and sort of the campaign expression something that actually can help sort of amplify itself within that social media channel. And then lastly, there's the strategic partnerships. We are placing a few big bets with certain people and sort of like really developing that as a long-term relationship. Facebook is a critical one for us with our 13 million fans. So again, it's one of those things that it's really a mix of all three for us. And again, a careful vetting that we really rely on in terms of our agency partners.
Okay. Do we have any folks in the audience who'd like to ask any questions of these esteemed leaders who are on stage today? Here for you, here to answer your questions. Anybody out there in the dark with a question? Oh, okay, I see a gentleman. I think we're going to try to get a mic to you, or do you want him to come in out there, or we're going to get the mic to you?
No, I'm going to get out there. Hi, I know that we're here talking about creative and ideas and all of that. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about data and data technology. And I'm involved with a company called Visual IQ, which
No, I'm going to cut you off. No commercials, please. So, if this question is referencing something that you're
basically,
handling,
both with advertisers and with agencies, there are many, many different silos of data. So when you're talking about agencies collaborating with each other or with their advertiser clients.
Yes.
And a lot of that data integration and obviously marketing itself is becoming more data driven. I'm just wondering if you can talk a bit about whether some things in that realm keep you awake at night.
Yeah, I'll give you my perspective on that. That definitely does. I have a new term that I learned 2 years ago called data hygiene, which ends up being very important because we have data coming from so many different places, and it has to get neutralized before we can take it into our systems to make that data meaningful. You're going to use that later. I know you are. You're going to use my money. But we have to make that, I mean, there's so much data, you can argue that there's never enough insight because there's so much data. So for us, we have to figure out how to manage that in a way. And we also are, I mean, I think probably any media agency would tell you that as we look at the normalizing all that data and investing in the platforms that data runs on for us to analyze, for us, what's meaningful about that is it allows us to tie to a business outcome instead of to a marketing outcome. Which then takes us to a whole different level of performance compensation, which excites us because we can be tied to what our clients are tied to instead of to a media investment. That would be ultimately critical for us. So huge focus, and yes, it definitely keeps a lot of us up at night.
I'd love to, if I could just echo that. I had mentioned before, CRM is closely aligned with media. So CRM is a discipline where everything is run by the numbers. We're having several conversations with consumers in very discrete forms. Like if someone is coming off lease from a car, with 30 days to go will have a different dialogue than someone who's in the first 30 days of ownership, for example. So when we have things like behavioral targeting and like companies like Quantcast and different companies out there in the space, it's actually easier for us to fit that within CRM because the discipline is there already for having the right message to the right audience at the right time. I think David Verklin once was on a panel like this and said, you want to be the guy selling umbrellas at Grand Central when it's raining, how fitting today. I think you want to have the right message at the right time, and with so many media choices and so many permutations, I think a marketing department these days is going to need someone who's part actuary and part air traffic controller, because you need to have someone who can figure out metrics-wise what's the right place to be and what's the right way to optimize, and then what's the right message for that particular place. And it makes it infinitely more complicated. It's exciting because there's so many choices. You're able to talk very discreetly, but it does make it more complex and more labor intensive.
And as that is going on, the need for platforms that employees, where I work, employees at the agencies and clients, where it can all talk to each other, where it works and it's seamless, it's very difficult because the amount of work that goes into building a platform is very hard, but it's really worthwhile. And we've seen a lot of, we've actually seen just a few really good examples of that. Google being probably the best one of a global, worldwide platform. But to answer that data question, you have to have people that understand it. It has to be actionable. And if you're not nimble, get out of it.
We have time for one more question. Down here. Wait for the mic. Thanks.
As the media landscape becomes more and more scattered, and as brands have millions of Facebook fans, is content still going to be king? Is engagement with high quality content still going to be king moving forward?
Perhaps, just from our perspective, even more so. I think that every good brand is about storytelling, and you need to tell that story in a compelling way, and I think it relies. I was just asked earlier this day if Madison Avenue is still relevant to a client, and I it's the same answer, very much so, and even more so because you're relying on people who have an expertise in storytelling, but they're just beginning to learn how to tell the story in different places. And so I think to answer your question, yeah, absolutely.
And I would have to say, in our company, there's a complete dedication to it. Our line of story matters here, and absolutely content. We devoted to content, dedicated to it.
And I would agree that it is storytelling. I think that's probably the best way. If you had to tell a 3-year-old child what marketing is, it's storytelling. So I think
fairy tales.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that, but it is storytelling. And I think in that regard, like we're doing some work with JagTech now. There's a phenomenon in the car business where people will actually go and shop on Sundays so that they can walk around the parking lot and no one interacts with them. So we put JagTags on the car, so you just take a quick picture of it, and then you get video content of someone taking you around the car, telling you why you should care, telling you what to look for. So I think content is still exploding. I think it's super important to us content-wise. Like we're running an art car documentary on Sundance to talk about our art cars and Jeff Koons, and like that's in its long form of a half hour, but I think sometimes it's in 20 seconds, tell me why you should buy a BMW. And I think it runs the gamut, but content is king.
The interesting part of that question is, if we interviewed everybody here in this room, no one, I can't believe, would say content isn't important. We all say it's important, but who's really putting up, who is executing on that, and that's where the rubber meets the road. So no one's going to give you a negative answer to your question.
The only thing I would add to that is that for clients, and Pat's examples illustrate this, is clients actually have to have their own content strategy because they are creating content, they have owned assets that are content. So it actually makes it more important because now you're trying to figure out how to marry that with the premium content that you might have. So it's more important.
All right, and I think on that note, we're going to conclude. Thank you all for coming, and please stand by for a minute.